This is Coder Radio, episode 13, for September 3rd, 2012. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Konnichiwa, Mr. Fisher.
Good afternoon to you, sir. And happy lucky episode number 13 to you. 13 weeks in a row, too.
13 weeks, it's a long time.
And I believe this week's episode's concept has been inspired by the lucky number 13, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. The things have been unfortunate for certain projects, and I think we've been down on them a little, and we should kind of look at both sides.
Oh, okay. And sometimes you don't know when you need to call it. So that could be an interesting angle to talk about all of this too. So sounds like we have a good show ahead of us. Should we start with our first email this week?
Let's jump in.
All right, so the feedback, you can send your emails and your comments to coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. And Mr. Dominic, what is our first email this week?
Well, the ever-timely Charles writes in approximately 2 minutes after the closing of the last show to give me his 2 cents on having newer developers learn C. Basically, he says it's a requirement. Makes a lot of good points. His email was pretty long, so we're not going to reproduce it here. But basically, if you never learn a lower-level language such as C, things like memory management and some lower level concepts will be, quote, black voodoo to you. I have to agree, right? And that's unfortunately, particularly on the memory management thing, because I know we talked about it last week, but when I see someone go from a managed language straight to, say, Objective-C and they have to manage memory, things crash hard.
Right.
So, and that seems to be a common refrain. He also shared some great training resources for kind of lower level or more technical concepts in development. And these are all but one available via YouTube.
This is awesome.
Yeah, they're basically courses by Buckland, who, if you don't know, is like an old school computer science dude.
Okay.
They're too long to reproduce here, but go ahead and check them out.
What's interesting about it is this is actually, we have links to all of these in the show notes, and this is taking advantage of something that people probably don't see very often in YouTube, but this very good EDU course layout that YouTube can offer where they drill down university science, computer science categories, and then here's all the videos right here. And Michael put a nice big list together in the show notes. So thank you.
Well, actually, Charles made the list. I just copy-pasted.
Right. Thank you to Charles for sending that in to us. That's a great resource.
Yeah, I did watch a few of them. I didn't have time, unfortunately, to watch everything, but good production quality, definitely something to look into. There's no reason not to. Additionally, the last one, assuming these links are in order, is the Google Tech Talk.
Yeah.
Again, really, actually, if you're not following the Google Developer channel on YouTube, you probably should. They have a lot of good training courses, a lot of, hey, this is the new HTML5 APIs, or this is the new Go language, or new PHP thing we're doing. And
what's great about them is they're not at least the ones I've seen, they're not a bunch of like flash and presentation. It is like Google put a camera in, and they brought somebody in their own conference room to give their own folks a demonstration on technology, and now they're just publishing that video online, and all of the pluses and minuses with that are associated, but in the most part, it's just a very good technical talk.
And the nice thing is it's not a, let's say, some other vendors might be more of a marketing than a training style thing.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all training because this is their training stuff that they put out there.
Right.
So definitely worth a look. In fact, I tend to look at a lot of their stuff, particularly on Android.
It's really nice that Google releases that.
Okay. So last week, if you recall, Chris, Nicholas wrote in, or Nicholas, I apologize.
Yeah.
With a open source / free software, shall we say, distribution conundrum.
Right.
I don't know. Would you agree that he was trying to make money off of his potential project but wanted to do something to give back to the community. Would you agree with that assertion?
Right, like his main goal is generate revenue, but try to somehow be fundamentally open source. And we titled the question "Making Money from Open Source."
Right. So we got a lot of feedback. A lot of it was challenging the term open source.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough. The point still stands. In fact, one writer in particular, I'm sorry I'm not using names, there were just too many to actually go through, wondered if we could, on this show, Chris, solve the problem. So figure out and put forth a method to, with free software, have a viable business model.
Wow, is that something two guys could even do?
I think that's a tall order.
I wonder, is that something there sort of has to be some sort of collaborative consensus on?
Well, I think, this problem, especially for desktop software or that style software, this problem has been around for a while.
Yeah.
And Chris is an amazing guy, but I don't think he's the one to solve it, and I don't think I am either.
Yeah, this is
if
tough.
It can be solved.
And I, actually though, I think you touched on what has sort of been identified as the most successful form of open source monetization and free software monetization is the support model.
Right.
Where you offer services around the software. And that's what I've seen work the best too. And I think that's what we're seeing play out in anybody in the industry who's making a lot of money from free software. Usually it's around the support services.
Yeah, and I've seen the extension or module model go well too. But again, these are all experimental. I mean, Chris is right. The support model's older and more battle tested.
But it has to be a certain class of application.
And I think that would be hard for, the other thing is we don't know a lot about Nicholas's project here. So if it's like a server stack or something like, maybe he's competing with DescentOS and writing a Linux distribution that he wants to somehow monetize. I don't know. Actually, Nicholas, if you could write in and tell us, A, if you've made a decision, what you decided, and B, a little more about what you're doing, that would be great. Also, we definitely plug it.
Going back to his original question, I honestly think that Nicholas's original question is, do you think it's feasible to make your source code publicly available, free for download, and also offer a paid version in an app store? I think that is feasible. I think you could charge, if it's, if you're doing something like a desktop app, I think you could charge $4.99 for the app store version or $10.99 or whatever it is, depending on the app. And because I would gladly pay that. Not only would I pay that, I rebuy applications that I've bought maybe once or twice online, like Rogue Amiga, a couple of their programs that I use for recording clips for Unfilter. I rebuy stuff through the App Store. I pay for it twice just to have the App Store version. So I would pay for a compiled version distributed through an App Store.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the competence to say if that's how that works with the licenses, if that's legal.
Yeah.
To me, I don't think that is legal. But
it really does depend on the licensing and how you do that. Yeah, and what the App Store policies allow. And
like if it was a GNU license, I don't think you can do that.
Right. What I've seen now. So, for example, on the Linux Action Show, my Android app pick was an rsync app that to get rsync on there, the app is closed source. You download the app from the Google Market, and then the app itself, after you have it installed on your phone, goes out and gets the GPL'd code.
Interesting. I mean, honestly, to me, that sounds like a bit of a contortion. There are solutions, Nick, and everybody else who wrote it, and maybe it is. All right, so Grey Wolf was saying that the GPL does allow that. So maybe that is the solution, but you'd have to see how much it cuts into sales if you're really trying to commercialize it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. I like the support model because it's been proven to work, but it doesn't work for a whole class of applications. Open core seems popular, but a lot of people don't like it. So, I can't say. I am not selling anything under either of these models.
If you're trying to make a living, if you're trying to honestly make a living and trying to maybe feed a couple of people in your family, it's hard to look at that and say, there's one thing you can guarantee. If you only distribute through the App Store versus making a free version available, you won't make as much money. If you have a free version available that is possible for somebody to download and compile, it's you will at some point lose a sale to that.
Right. And somebody in the chat's mentioning just putting ads in your application. That is not as good as it used to be. Let's say that way.
You just have to look at it and what makes sense for you and what makes sense for your app, and it's going to be application and function specific.
Yeah, I don't think there's a magic bullet here. I think it's going to depend. It also depends. Are you doing this as a student, where it's more about getting some proof of the work you can do, or is this actually supposed to pay your rent and take care of your family?
Right. And do you want to use this as a resume builder? Because then maybe open source makes some sense because you can show people the code.
In that case, I would say just go straight open source.
Yeah.
Put it on GitHub or whatever. But let's move along because we can't competently answer this.
Mm-hmm. All
right. So Chris, not you, Chris, writes in to tell me that not all the listeners are in fact devs. In fact, he is a biz dev kind of guy. I'm applying the term biz dev to him because he wrote a longer email.
Nice.
So I just have to say ha 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 to YouTube.
Why is that? Why YouTube?
A lot of complaints about business, monetization.
I thought you didn't read YouTube comments.
I read them once and then I said I wouldn't read them again.
Okay. All right.
So again, but really it is important to look at both sides.
Right.
And I'm glad that there is an audience that is in fact not devs. So it's good to have a wide appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we talked about being able to think like and interface with designers. I think, what was that, 4 episodes ago already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit ago.
It's been a long time. You also have to be able to do that with business dev people or managers, or it depends on the type of industry you're in. Moving right along.
Okay.
So this hits on something we kind of talked about before, game development. Okay, so Simon writes in sharing a few things. JMonkey Engine, which is a Java game development engine, which probably poor taste today. Open Game Art, Creative Commons Game Art, I believe. And the Liberated Pixel Cup, which is actually pretty cool. It is a indie game competition. So if any of you are indie game developers out there, which I know from the last episode you are, because the XNA sadness.
Yeah.
Take a look at the Liberated Pixel Cup. Might be a place for you to get some recognition, get your game out there. That's it. That's like a PSA. And by the way, all of you who are upset about XNA, I feel your pain. And I'm sorry.
I actually have changed my tune on it. I tuned into a good old Windows Weekly Thursday before the last TechSnap. And as I was setting up the studio, and you know what they were talking about there on their Windows Weekly is... by the way, I'm showing the Liberated Pixel Cup site in the enhanced video feed. This is a very fancy looking site. I like this. It's very, very cool retro look. They've mentioned that Microsoft is just trying to do things more secretly these days. They're trying to keep things under wraps, and they're making people think they're abandoning things when they're really trying to do is just pull an Apple and not announce anything ahead of time kind of stuff. So XNA might not be...
doesn't do that with developer tools. They just sue you to crap if you tell anybody.
That's true. They do. Yeah, they make the NDA up and then they tell you about it.
So wait. Your theory is that they've intentionally let all the developers working on XNA, who have made the XBLA platform and Windows Phone gaming platform, XBLA platform, think that XNA is dead, forcing them to go to mono game, which is something Microsoft doesn't like.
Right.
Just to pretend to be Apple. That doesn't make sense because Apple doesn't do that.
Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to be an optimist. If Microsoft does this, if Microsoft pulls the rug out from under XNA, I think it will be one of the things that fundamentally change my opinion about. I mean, you can lobby a lot of charges at Microsoft, but one of them is generally not been how they generally treat their developers really well. And one of the, you can say a lot of things, but you can't say they're mean to developers often. However, I got to say, I'm not liking this. I've been thinking a lot about this. I don't know why it's been on my mind a lot, but
doing, because even Apple, for all the crap they give their developers, they at least tell you about API changes. Like, they're not like, by the way.
Yeah, it's just it's been. So I understand. I guess what I'm saying is I am commiserating with our audience out there who's also kind of reeling with this because it's just ridiculous.
Oh, but you might be right. You know why? MSDN doesn't have the same type of NDA that Mac Developer Program has. So anything they release in MSDN, you can instantly post on a blog.
Maybe they're working on something. Maybe something to do with the Xbox, whatever they're going to call it.
Well, if we go down this road,
370.
Anybody who's now had to jump to mono game, make the investment, which is not a small investment, are they going to jump right back to XNA 5 and make the investment again?
What really big game shop has done that? I mean, is anybody that Microsoft would really care about done that?
They should care because they make a lot of money off of XBLA.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know. It's a tough spot. I mean, I don't think a platform vendor ever feels bad for those people who jump ship into something that's kind of a clone. You know,
well, yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure the XNA developers, if XNA 5 was already announced, would certainly not be jumping to mono game.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think one thing is XNA is more prevalent than you think. A lot of games, a lot of big games, were originally written in XNA or are written still in XNA, even outside the Xbox, on PC. Even sometimes they get ported to Mac and Linux from XNA, which is where things like Mono come in.
Interesting.
I wouldn't downplay the importance of XNA. I would just say it seems like a big gamble.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, platforms like this, there are things where companies need to be very clear about their roadmap, very clear about their intentions, because you need to be able to invest.
I mean, the only thing that would be is if they said the next Xbox has no XBLA, which I think would just be leaving money on the table because, Sony now has the PlayStation Indie Developer Portal or whatever that they're pushing really hard. So why would Microsoft leave that market when they're dominating it?
Right, right.
Because Sony had a snobby attitude about that. But never mind my personal issues. All right, so Keith writes in to ask, where's the web development / PHP development love? And where's the Windows love?
Well, he apparently doesn't tune into the live stream because you were loving all over Windows on the pre-show.
So, Keith, I talk about my Windows love when it's not being recorded. So no one can call me on it.
It's true. It's true.
No, in all honesty, I have a Windows 8 machine. The problem is I don't, without Terminal, without Bash, I'm kind of a lost puppy. It's really sad to say. But last night I was working on my Windows machine, and I had a hard time getting my SSH keys correct for Git. Because I had forgotten how to do it on Windows.
Oh, yeah.
On Mac and on Ubuntu, I could do that in like 4 seconds.
Yeah. I agree. The command prompt in PowerShell is just it's no bash. And if I am on a Windows machine, I generally have a putty window.
Right. And the other thing is I just upped to Windows 8, so I'm not familiar with the GUI prompts just yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I'm a stranger in a strange land, and given the choice, I tend to work in my Mac or in Ubuntu or something Unix based where I know I can just go CD ls my way to success.
Yeah, yeah.
Regarding PHP,
yeah. What do you think?
So I don't know how you got the impression that I dislike PHP. Now, if you thought I disliked KDE, you might be correct.
Oh, jeez.
PHP is great, right? I have nothing against PHP. PHP runs sites that I use and don't like Facebook.
Now, Michael, can you comment on? I have heard that Facebook writes in some other language and then it compiles down to PHP or it outputs. I mean, it's some sort of they use some sort of crazy.
Last I looked into their development stuff, they wrote in PHP but they wrote with the hip hop framework and they did some kind of compiled PHP.
Okay.
I think it's PHP compiling down to something.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense.
I mean, they're a fast-moving company, and I haven't looked into their stuff for over 6 months, which in tech time is
a long time. And honestly, when it comes to everything Facebook, I really, and I'm getting worse about it. I thought I'd be warming up to Facebook over time, but I blank out more now when people talk about. I hate Facebook more than I ever have.
Okay, so Grey Wolf and Desarney have independently confirmed that Grey Wolf confirms that they write in PHP that compiles down to C++. And I was right. The name of the framework is hip hop, according to Desarney.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I have nothing against PHP. In fact, there's a whole lot of PHP code running around that does perfectly fine. I think it may not get a lot of play because I don't use it a whole lot. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with PHP. And if you're doing something in PHP, good on you. It's a battle-tested language. There are people who hate on it because there's a lot of bad PHP, but that's not the fault of the language. That's the fault of the crappy coders. That does not suggest that all PHP developers are crappy.
I've also heard from old-timers who say, what? The personal homepage language? You'd never use that for any real work.
How is Ruby on Rails compared to PHP? Slow. Answer slow.
There you go. You got that in. All right. Very nice. Do you want me to read David's email, or do we have any other thoughts on that? All right. So,
forgot Sven.
Oh, Sven. Oh,
you got to show Sven's thing.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, you want to do that first? Okay, so you read it, and I'll show it when you tell me to.
All right. So Sven wrote in, or should we say coded in?
Yes. Yeah. That's a good. Yeah, because Sven coded in. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. He didn't really write in. A JavaScript animated / CSS animated web page.
Do you want me to show the animation first or the CSS first?
Show the actual animation.
All right. So this is beautiful. A very good looking icon, very sharp image that Michael has here. And watch what happens when so if you're watching the video version, you'll see this. Audio listeners, I'm going to just mouse over this in my web browser, and it starts wiggling when my mouse hovers over. I take my mouse off, stops.
Wrong.
What?
That's the one I wrote.
Oh, well, okay, so did I get the demo wrong?
Yeah, you got the wrong demo.
Oh, but okay, so it's wiggling.
We can go ahead and talk about that one first.
Okay, it's wiggling. That's neat.
So a few weeks ago, M. Hazel wrote in to ask me to figure out how, I think on OMG Ubuntu, that little bubble with their logo wiggled.
Yeah.
So I just wrote a simple WebKit CSS transition to do the little hover. Very simple.
I wondered how it did that.
It's on GitHub as a gist. Provided by CodeJournal.
Nice.
That is also the CodeJournal logo. So
now here's the problem with it though, is it only works in WebKit.
You can Google around and find the Firefox version and just add it to the script.
Yeah. I tried it. I threw it in my Firefox and yeah, but it is a very simple. This is really cool. I like this. I mean, I can fit the whole thing in one shot on my screen. So there you go.
So that's it's pretty simple, right?
So that's how the OMG Ubuntu logo does it.
Oh, I didn't look at their code, but it's the same effect.
Yeah.
Now, this came to me a little too easy, so I have a feeling I've either done this before, or read it before. So, the code's pretty simple, right? You change that number 4 and all the degrees to change how much it shakes.
Right.
We're writing wiggle on top of WebKit, so it literally moves the image. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on there. You could do something with JavaScript, but CSS, I think, is more elegant for that.
Yeah.
So,
and as long as you get a Firefox one, because otherwise people are going to complain, man. But people just they'll have to leave that up to their own Googling. But Michael has made that one available.
And M. Hazel, if that's not what you were looking for and I misunderstood you, sorry. I tend to do things wrong.
Aw.
All right, so you want to try that other demo?
All right, so I have the paste bin here, but I don't have the download part. Let me go grab that.
I sent it to you as oh no, I sent you only mine as a zip file.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I've got it. I got it here.
All right, while you do that, I'll mention.
It's like
Sarni's sharing that Facebook has a GitHub page with a bunch of open source. Right on, go check it out.
This is kind of psychedelic. Okay, this is a billboard, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a very 60s billboard.
All right. There we go. Oh, actually, okay, I just saw something spelled there.
Yeah. So it's the you could just show it. I'm gonna talk about his letter and read it, but yeah. Basically, he wrote the contents of his message in the billboard as it's by.
Gotcha.
So what he's asking is, do I think that self-taught programmers are better at thinking, quote, outside the box than traditional CS grads? And I'm going to give you a weaseling answer because I'm not touching this with a 47-foot pole. I would say that this is the same question as, are CS grads better programmers than self-taught people? I have a huge bias. What I will say is that I don't think it's possible for anyone to give an honest answer, because two different people are always going to be different by logic. So you would have to have both the same person as self-taught and college educated in computer science to actually get a real fair comparison, a real control group.
Yeah.
So I would say that this is just as what's a nice way to say, unimportant a way to think as the should I never hire self-taught programmers.
Right. It's all dependent on the person.
All depends on the person. And honestly, I've interviewed a lot of CS students, and a lot of them aren't very good.
Oh yeah.
But I've interviewed a lot of self-taught people that aren't very good either.
Yeah, sure.
So I would say that I think the issue Sven's really encountering is that these people are clinging to an old way of doing things, or they've learned a pattern or a way of doing things and don't want to change. Because his example was there was a problem, but if the CS grads on his team, and I presume they were very young, had a solution in mind and didn't want to think outside that solution. So I would say that has nothing to do with having a computer science degree. And that just has to do with being stubborn.
Yeah.
On Icarus, he's saying he's a computer science degree student, but considers himself self-taught.
Huh.
I would say that to me, this distinction is so unimportant, self-taught versus CS grad, that I don't care. Right? I mean, when I look for people to help me, I look at code samples anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, and not to say that there are companies that won't hire you if you're self-taught. And, you know, I think I talked about this. My first few jobs were hard to get as self-taught.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because people want to see
degree. But, yeah. And I had to do like open source code samples and things like that.
They want degree or they want work equivalency.
Yeah. But beyond that, once you get the first gig or the first job, it's, you know, I haven't had someone ask me what my degree is in a long time.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're curious, this medieval literature.
And do you feel like some of that is medieval literature? Huh? Do you feel like some of that is not so relevant anymore now that there are things like, you know, you can show people code samples, you can you know, send them links to your work online. I mean, it's almost like the internet and having everything online sort of changes the very nature of a programmer's portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my basic thing is, oh, you're interested in seeing work samples? Great, here's a bunch of App Store links.
Yeah.
Or a bunch of web app links.
Yeah, exactly. Or here's my GitHub.
I mean, but it makes sense. Let's play devil's advocate, right? If you have two candidates and neither of them have any samples to show you, first of all, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But you might feel more secure with the person with the right degree.
In that conditions, yeah. In those conditions.
Again, you know, this issue keeps coming up, and I think.
But I would take proof of code over a degree 100 times over.
Right, and there are some fields where, say, a master's or a doctorate are required, but those are more. You know, there are cases where it's required. There's also the sad fact that, and you know, Joel Sposky wrote a great article on this. A computer science degree isn't as sciencey as it used to be. A lot of schools have, my understanding and my experience interviewing these people, have turned into what they would call, quote, Java schools, where they come out with a 4-year computer science degree and don't understand memory management. So what was the point?
Yeah.
And again, it's tough to say, right? Because broad statements like that, self-taught's, you know, neither is better. It depends on the individual person. And I would just...
I guess what your point is, you're probably framing the question wrong. It's more about experience and not so much about how they got there. It's more about what they can do.
Right, because I think a good developer needs to be able to move between platforms. So at some point, what you've learned in school, you know, the theory is all going to be helpful. But it depends. I mean, and then, you know, if you're only hiring computer science grads, are you then looking at the program's curriculum to make sure they have low-level training? Because to me, that would be the logical way to do that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So and honestly, every interview or every project kickoff I've been on, nobody's asked. They've said, let's see some code samples. Let's see some previous projects. But that might be, you know, I think it's different everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Like I've interviewed at some large telcos where the degree thing was an issue until they saw code samples.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So more older, traditional style companies.
Yep. There are some companies that are sort of, or some industries that are really well known for that. You know, you only get so far if you don't have a degree, and so you have to factor that in depending on where you're going to end up.
Well, I don't even say it's that you don't get far. It's that getting in the door is hard.
Yeah.
But once you've gotten the meeting or the interview, I mean, if you have a body of impressive work or a body of decent work, I mean, I wouldn't say mine's terribly impressive. Though, Chris, let's be honest, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you're fine. And I think worrying about, you know, if you come out with a 4-year degree and have no code samples or no projects done, I think you have a serious problem.
Right.
That's probably the bottom line.
The only time not having a degree has been a particular hindrance for me is when I worked in the education. The education field respects those degrees quite a bit, and you literally,
of course,
you make more money. You enter you get I forget what they call it, but basically you earn a special pay badge, and you get a different pay rate. And so that would be something to. So people who worked in that district who didn't have degrees would later on go and finish their degrees, so that way they could then qualify for the extra pay. So it depends on the field you end up in. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it depends a lot. Actually, so I didn't know that. I thought you were, because I know Alan Jude is a professor of system administration or something.
I got many tricks, man. I got many tricks. Although, let's be honest, he was doing I believe he was doing computer networking and stuff like that. Those kind of stuff. I was doing all of the back-end server and desktop stuff. However, I did actually do some teaching too, but nothing in official capacity because I don't have the clearance to do it. So it would be like, all right, class, today the computer person's going to come in and tell you about computers.
Yeah, and one good thing for our younger listeners to do what I did. If you're in school, especially if you're not going for computer science, get a job doing software development part-time. Because that first job was hard for me to get, but once I got it,
right,
that's the ticket.
It really starts, it's a snowball.
Yeah, it's just that first job is going to be, I'm not gonna lie. You're gonna go on a lot of interviews, and there's gonna be people who treat you badly, and they're gonna say, especially if it's liberal arts, they're gonna give you a really bad time, and they're gonna start talking about, let's say, math that almost never comes up.
Oh, I hate this.
Kind of.
You get somebody. What the worst is when you get somebody who's crawled their way up to that position, and now they get to have fun with the interviewee, and they get to ask they've heard that Google asks some really great questions, so they're going to ask some of their own great questions, and then when you leave, they snicker with all their buddies. Well, guess what he said to this one? You should have seen the look on his face when I asked him this.
Yeah, I mean, you'll meet people who think they're pretty damn clever.
Yeah, I hate that.
So one thing I would recommend, even if you are a computer science grad, go in with code samples. You steer the conversation away from those ridiculous questions, because I would reverse those questions on the people. A lot of times, it's only happened once to me where the person doesn't know the answer to the question they're asking. They just Googled something clever. So, I hate to say this, but if you're not Google, you don't deserve to have the Google interview process.
I know. Exactly.
This idea that you're going to pay, half the price for a junior developer and say you're going to go for like somebody who can do calc in their head. So nobody does calc. The job I was going for, and I did get it, was Java applet developer.
Nice, dude. And did you have to do any weird questions for that one?
Not the manager, but one of the guys thought he was, and he told me later as I worked there, he didn't like that I didn't have a science degree or a technical degree. But of course, he liked that I was a jerk on the interview.
Oh, really?
He said, well, if you could solve that for me, I would love to learn.
Wow.
So sometimes you have to do that.
Good for you.
You can tell, hey, Grey Wolf, you can do calc in your head. You are the way and the light.
Well, he is the Grey Wolf.
He is the lone. Is he related to Stark from Game of Thrones?
He might be. Or maybe he's related to Tony Stark.
Yeah. And one thing to note, we're talking about junior positions in school. Like, at some point, you should learn the deeper technical and math stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're going for basic Java junior programmer, I don't think it matters. But we got off on a tangent. And Sven, I would say, tell your buddies to go play Portal. Just move on.
All right, should I read David's email?
Yeah, David.
All right, chat room, listen up, because I think we're going to need some suggestions on this one, because this is a tough one, specifically because of his bandwidth constraints. Here it goes. He says, hi, Michael and Chris. I love your awesome show, you guys. Keep up the good work, and I've learned a lot from the show. It's also helped me clear some misconceptions I had about programming languages and practices. But here's the meat, you guys, so prepare your brains. I've been trying to create a small CRM application for schools in Africa. The biggest problem we have is that most of the areas in our target region have slow connectivity. Thus, cloud is not a realistic approach. I like how it's just cloud now. Cloud is not a realistic approach. Thus, we opted in our designs to have small server nodes for each school. aka clients, and then have the databases replicate the data to the main server so the information would be available via a web portal. I know this is easier said than done, so my question is which database is well suited for this, i.e. offers high availability and can do replication over low latency? I've heard about MongoDB and MySQL clusters. Which one is more suited for this, and is it realistic to do this application using PHP on the back end? P.S. The local servers at the client's place can push and pull data from the main servers. Wow, now this is a difficult spot because getting good data synchronization between multiple locations like this can be a really tricky thing to pull off.
Right, so a few things right off the bat. A, I'm not going to be able to give a solid answer because don't have boots on the ground here. B, I would not go with MongoDB.
Okay.
Or actually, C, the language is fine. Don't worry about it. PHP will be fine. That matters less, in fact, than your database. Now, I don't want to get the NoSQL lovers to hate me. It's very new, and there are advantages to using MongoDB or something like that. But if this is mission critical, I would be a little cautious, and I would want to go with something older.
I think I might have said low latency as high latency between the areas. The chat room, and I would also, in terms of when really solid inter database replication from an open source package is required, I generally recommend Postgres, and I see the chat room is recommending that as well.
Postgres is a popular alternative to MySQL these days.
I think I would avoid. So I have a client who attempted something like this about 11, 12 years ago when they were writing the application and modem connectivity was more common. There wasn't really an open source MySQL to speak of, and so they did it all flat file, and then they do a series of rsync bash scripts to synchronize everything between the locations. I would not recommend this.
But Grey Wolf makes a good point that this is what NoSQL basically was designed to do.
Okay.
So I'm torn. I mean, there is a serious advantage to going with something NoSQL here.
Well, now that's interesting. I mean, if this is a problem that NoSQL is meant to solve, then that does sound
problem, in my opinion, and this is pure opinion, so let's try and avoid the rage here. It's a little untested for my taste.
Okay. I wonder what size of data they're working with.
We would need to know that. I feel like budget is a problem here, which obviously because you couldn't afford the one type of architecture. So I would work the problem differently. How comfortable are you, David, working in NoSQL versus working in something more traditional? Would you have to then learn how to use this new tool?
There's solutions around Microsoft SQL for this too. So that's.
But he's talking about developing this on PHP, so
that doesn't matter. You could run PHP on IIS just fine. I mean, I wouldn't do it for a large scale, but if you're talking, 500 users, 700 users, 1,000 users, I think it's okay.
All right, so Grey Wolf is saying it is in fact well tested, and there are mature solutions he could look into.
So that does sound like a real possibility.
So it sounds like Mongo may be a good choice. Now, I've done small things in Mongo. I've never done anything mission critical in Mongo. But honestly, this is a NoSQL. This is like a textbook problem for NoSQL in a lot of ways.
This would be a great chance for folks to email in some follow-up answers.
Yeah, this would be a great chance to email. I do think the right answer may be, because people are in the chat recommending Postgres with a lot of what I would call contortions to get it to do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't add that complexity.
The main issue I would have with anything like MySQL or Postgres SQL is they generally are always operating under the assumption that they have solid connectivity to their partners, and if that's just not something you can guarantee, or if their data sets they have to transfer between each other will be too large with your bandwidth, then you're almost forced just right there to look somewhere else.
I guess Grey Wolf has convinced me. You should probably lean towards more towards Mongo, only because out of the box it does kind of what you need.
Mongo.
You don't have to do anything scary, but I would really take stock and make sure do your research, know what you're doing, and don't make any silly mistakes.
Yeah. And if other folks have suggestions, email them to us, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or use that contact form.
Because this is a very interesting problem, right? And as Darsani in the chat brings up, he's working in Africa, so presumably MS SQL's out of the question.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I would assume the cost of that plus the software overhead requirements would be a no-go.
So we have a little debate whether NoSQL is in fact good for this problem.
Which means we'll probably get one out in the...
We're going to get... So yeah, it's interesting. I would say, one thing I would challenge is, why are you limited to Mongo as your only option? Is that a client requirement? Or is it like Mongo's the only NoSQL you can use?
Right, because we're also not addressing what the application limitations or requirements might be.
Right, we don't have a lot of data here to make a firm... And I don't think, it's a podcast. I don't think we'll ever have enough data to give you a firm answer.
No, because I would be charging.
Yeah. I would send you a bill. Yeah. I would say look into NoSQL solutions, and if you're not limited to Mongo, Grey Wolf recommends CouchDB. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Oh, CouchDB. Sure.
But I can tell you, Grey Wolf is both wise and powerful.
Yes, and he knows calculus in his head.
And I would just make sure that whatever tool you go with, you're comfortable working in. Because the last thing you want to do is experiment on your mission critical module.
Yeah.
Having said that, Godspeed.
Or I wonder if there's a different way to engineer the consolidated results so that each location sort of sends like compiled numbers and then you just assemble it instead of having to have all of the data.
He was being forced into that architecture, though.
Okay.
So it seems like he has to deal with the system, or that at least design.
Oh yeah, we opted in our design to have a small server nodes for clients and have the databases replicate the data.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That is not. I'm glad I'm not you.
I would say, in low bandwidth, low connectivity scenarios, the more processing and data churning you can do at the individual locations and then have them only have to transmit the results, the better off you are.
You know what I would say, actually? If you have time, look into, say, take your top 3 solutions, present them all to your client with the benefits and possible pitfalls, and see which is more acceptable to him or her. Yeah. Because something like this is pretty complex, and I can see some failure.
Give them the different cost-benefit scenarios and put your price on there.
Costs, and I'm assuming we have to go open source on this, which is probably the way I'd go anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So write in again, David, because I'm curious. Are you limited to Mongo just because you heard of it and are interested in it? Or are you actually limited to either MySQL or Mongo because that's the choice you were given?
Right.
Okay.
All right. We have one more email here, don't we?
Yeah, Toyslav, sorry I butchered your name, writes in to yell at me.
What? What'd you do?
He says, Flash is not dead.
Not dead yet.
Not dead yet, sir. In fact, he says Adobe Air is a behemoth, my word, not his, in the game development space.
Wow.
He sent me then the Adobe roadmap for Flash and Adobe Air, which is about 20 pages long.
Oh, wow, really?
I dutifully read through it, and I have to say he is in fact correct.
Now, boy, I'm going to get some hate for this probably, but we have seen a lot of claims from Adobe on what the future of things are, and then they just completely 180. I mean, this is like Adobe does this all the time. So, I mean, if they have a roadmap, I mean, that's what they're going with today, but it doesn't mean that's what they're going to be going with next year. Am I just being a hater pants?
I'm just going to be honest here. I don't care enough to know. Honestly, any case where I would use Flash, I would use HTML5 and JavaScript.
Well, I guess if you're able to deliver something under Air that you can't deliver under.
I guess, but I would be
like, they tout integration with Unity for one. That's big,
Yeah, I mean, all right. So some people in chat are saying that Air is in fact going to die. I would say that Air, because the writer makes a great point. It is alive and well in the game space, especially in the indie game space. Perhaps that's a niche that it will survive in. And, I do have more confidence than I did last week. I would still probably not do like a business or a utility application on Air.
It seems like Angry Birds, and this is just the online implementation of Angry Birds, is the biggest name that they kind of have in their showcase.
Chris, the stream is dead.
Oh, the stream died.
It sounds like.
I still have it. Did it die on your end? Are you having connections?
Nope. Somebody said maybe it's just the 2 people in chat. Oh. Okay.
You know what I'm saying though? Like the biggest title I see in their library here in their showcase is Angry Birds, and it's not the Angry Birds like on smartphones.
Well, no, that Machirium or Machinum. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good game.
That's
too.
a huge game.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. So I think the problem is here. I'm not saying the technology is bad. My concern last week was with the vendor support.
Yeah.
But again, if you're happy working in it, and they have made this statement and released this document, they're not. There's no requirement for them to do what they say. But
future looks brighter than XNA.
Why you got to do that? I see.
It's true though, right?
Oh, the KDE hate will be flowing.
Honestly, Brian and I went on the record on the Linux Action Show saying that we kind of thought if Air was done correctly, and if Air was, a good, well-updated, well-supported platform, well-optimized by Adobe, because they were targeting Android, Linux, Windows, and the Mac, and some of the early apps we'd seen weren't bad. We even saw some proto video editors and things like that. We kind of went on the record saying this might work. Maybe this is a way for things to go, but that was two years ago, and now looking at it now, it just I don't know. I can still see it being. I can still see there's a need that Air addresses. So I don't want to say
Adobe,
it's dead.
Makes good tools, right? You can't knock.
Yeah, they do.
So if you knew the Flash programming language, I think Air is a great place to go. Especially if you're an indie game developer, and maybe that's what it's going to survive. I mean, they're pushing Unity integration, so I think they've acknowledged that audience.
I think they should buy Unity too, as Lova's saying in the chat room. That seems like that'd be a great fit for them.
They should purchase Unity.
Yeah, if they could afford it. I don't know what their financials look.
I don't think they can afford it.
Yeah,
I guess they can.
I mean,
they charge outrageous fees for Illustrator.
They just got to release a new version of Photoshop, then they can roll that in.
Well, they have their subscription, Creative Cloud now.
Yeah.
All right, but let's move into actual topics because we've been here for a long time.
Yeah, this has been a long feedback segment. Do you mind if I give it the affiliates just a quick plug? Everybody knows about the affiliates.
Yeah, we love them.
Just a quick mention because we actually had a couple of people, literally a couple, last week take advantage of our Code School affiliate. That's a great one for the Code School audience, so you can go check out Code School. But any of our affiliates down at the bottom of the website, just please consider using those or visiting our donate page over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate and contributing directly. The monthly subscriptions help fund these shows and keep us on the air. And the affiliate links are a great way to get yourself a little something and contribute a little something to Jupiter Broadcasting. Just a brief reminder, and thanks to everybody who participates in that.
So this segment, Chris, you've probably noticed more than, well, I guess the listeners will notice too, has been in and out, this week's Dev World Hoopla.
Yeah, boy, you guys in the development community, you just really like to...
We like to fight. We basically hate each other.
Is it insulting? But do you think it's possible that narcissism might be more common among developers? Yes. Okay, all right, good. See, what I love, you're such a pragmatist. I love this. You're like, yeah, that's true.
No, I fight with... I got into an argument this week about bracket placement, and I realized I was just being a total tool. I was just like, no, that's not right. K and R is the only way to do that. What's wrong with you?
Oh, man.
I just went ape, and I was like, oh, actually, that's not that bad. Okay, I can conform to that.
And it's funny because, Marco Armit's done this on his blog regarding the App Store, and now Miguel Icaza's done it on his blog regarding the desktop Linux because it doesn't work for me anymore, so therefore it's dead.
Yeah, so I'm going to play devil's advocate because you've made yourself pretty clear on last, and if you haven't listened to last, you should. So for those of you who don't know what this is, Miguel de Casa was basically one of the instrumental, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
People GNOME project, and he is basically Unity. Not Unity, I'm sorry, Mono.
Yeah. He was one of the people that originally led the cause when KDE was really the only Linux desktop. He said, no, we need something else.
Now, I'm going to make his argument. His argument, he has actually several of them, but I think his strongest argument is that Linux is wasting a lot of time duplicating effort, inventing multiple desktops, that the Linux development community in particular, how would you say this nicely, is kind of more interested in being different than putting forth a cohesive product. Would that be fair to say?
I don't know. I think maybe what it is, it always seems like to me is they get very close, like GNOME 2 and
Right.
all that gets very close, and then they start to hate the plumbing, and they need to
They
throw it all
revert the
out.
low levels. Yes.
Yeah,
So there's a couple of things he also adds. He asserts that a lot of people who would have been using Linux, particularly developers, have moved to Mac.
now this is the part I want to talk about.
Now that is hard to track, but I do have to say, every developer meetup I go to, I'm seeing a large number of Macs.
Yeah, and I've made comments about this on the Linux Action Show when we go to Linux events, with the exception of Linux Fest Northwest here up in Bellingham, Washington. It really actually isn't so much the case, but when I go to like Ubuntu One or OSCon, Macs everywhere. It's Mactopia.
Right, and the conferences I would go to are not like that. So they're, web development conferences. Occasionally I'll go to a Java thing, something, local small things in Jersey or in Manhattan. But I have to say, unless it's like a Linux specific event, it's a Mac party.
That's been my experience.
And so there's people who are attacking him on that assertion. I would say, or at least of the group of people who are involved in the community and are going to conferences or writing blogs or they're using Macs, they may be running open source technology on their Macs, but the machine is a Mac running OS 10.
Well, and here is a little bit of what I've kind of pieced together. Just this is all based on my observations, talking with people off the record that we've had interviews on Linux Action Show, and we'll be setting up ahead of time. How do you want to talk? Okay. And one of the questions I ask is, are you Skype on Linux? Are you Skype on Windows? Are you Skype on Mac? And, it's very often it's Skype on Mac. And what a lot of times it comes down to is, one of the problems is that
audio.
What?
Pulse audio.
Well, yeah, and that made a lot of people jump ship, and that enabled what a lot of people did is they jumped ship. They had issues with that kind of stuff, and then virtualization on the Mac with VMware Fusion and Parallels got really good. It's really good. Yep. And so you can run Ubuntu in VMware Fusion, and you get OpenGL, you get Compiz Fusion, you get all of the acceleration, and you've got integrated tools, you got drag and drop between the desktop. It's really integrated. So like Michael Leibel, the proprietor of Phoronix.com, one of the largest Linux publications that writes about hardware and does reviews all the time, and broke the story about Valve. He uses Macs, and he runs inside a VM all the time on his Mac because he gets better battery life and he gets better hardware features doing that. He bought the Retina MacBook Pro, and he runs Ubuntu full screen in VMware.
Right. I mean, you can knock Apple for many things, but one thing you can't is their laptop battery life and power efficiency it's top shelf.
But I think all of these, and so maybe some people jumped ship, but I actually don't see the long-term play for OS 10 doesn't seem that great for these types of people. It almost seems like, these people jump ship. These people move around. Just like in the gaming industry, people who love MMOs and always get in the betas are always moving to the next game, the next MMO. People like us, we're always moving to the best platform, and whatever it is for our needs, we'll go there.
Yeah, and I would almost say that's kind of missing the point. He has a point, especially in terms of developing an application on, quote, Linux and having a cohesive experience across distros. But I would say that that kind of begs the question, are you developing a Linux application, or should you be developing a OpenSUSE application, or perhaps a Fedora application, or maybe, more likely than not, an Ubuntu application?
It's nuanced. It depends on your target audience.
And I really hate to say this because I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I think this is kind of sour grapes. He was top of the world for a long time in that community. And in a lot of ways, Ubuntu pulled the rug from under him. Mm-hmm. Mono didn't get the support I think he had hoped for. Mm-hmm. And
he felt like he had the solution. He felt like he
had a solution. Yeah. And he's focusing on another world now. He's focusing on mobile a lot more, which is great. I focus on mobile a lot. But to say it is absolutely true that a lot of people who are web developers in particular moved from Linux to Mac. And I think that's true. just by anecdotally the people at conferences and people I know who formerly ran Ubuntu and now run OS 10. I would not say that it's dead. I think it's a cycle, and I have a feeling that, when OS 10, we're at 10.8, so there can't be too much left. I think there'll be people going back, but I think they're not going to go back to Linux. I think they're going to go back to Ubuntu.
Exactly.
And I think this is almost and I know people are going to hate this, I don't think there's a Linux desktop market anymore. I think there's Mac, Ubuntu, and Windows.
You nailed it.
And I think that Ubuntu is now so, because if you want to consider all the Linuxes the same, then why don't we just call Mac a distro of FreeBSD?
Exactly.
Because let's be honest, the UX in Unity is very Mac-like.
Yep.
Mark Shuttleworth is trying to be Steve Jobs 2.0.
Exactly.
Very, very hard.
And it makes business sense to try to do that.
Of course, corporate people love visionaries.
Yep.
They love romantic, mm-hmm. They have this ideal.
Yep.
More importantly, from a development perspective, and I can tell you this personally, it's a little rough when one distro doesn't have the libraries you might expect it to.
Right. Yeah. 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 It makes your product look bad to the end user when something crashes because the library wasn't where you expected it or was the wrong version.
Or if it doesn't look consistent out the box.
Yeah. It reflects poorly on you.
So what I think is happening is he's caught in an old way of thinking that, there is always going to be a core Linux user group who scoffs at Ubuntu's user friendliness and the kind of the design they're taking and the focus on design. But I think they're going to gain people from the Mac side because of that focus on design and ease of use. And I
think it's already happening.
Yeah, I think there is going to be an Ubuntu market for software, but I don't think it's going to have anything to do with, quote, Linux.
I think this is a position that System 76 it could be leveraging even better because this I agree with you, Michael, a lot. And I made the point in the Linux Action Show this week that when Steve Jobs, you can go watch the YouTube clip, when he announced it, he said, this version, we have a roadmap. We've had a roadmap since before we announced it, and this version will last us as long as macOS Classic, which is 15 years.
Yeah, wasn't that like 1980 something?
He was doing that. I think he announced that he announced that in 99 or 2000.
99. So it's 2012. So that's
we're close on that path. And if you look at it, sandboxing to me and a lot of these features are sort of getting things ready possibly for a transition. Because things are a lot more portable if they're sandboxed and they're locked down and they're through the App Store. Apple will eventually just swap out the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I heard what you said on last, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, probably not. Probably 4 or 5 years.
I don't think it's ever going to happen because it would kill the pro market, which is still important to them, graphics design.
I think you're assuming that iOS doesn't evolve into something much more feature-rich.
I think... Never mind. A little too inside baseball, but I would say that for the next 6 months, people who have two devices should look at the rate of change on iOS, Android, and Windows Phone and be objective. And one platform is clearly moving very slowly, very stagnant. One platform is fixing its bugs, which is obvious. And the third platform is going to be the rebel. And you'll be surprised at who the rebel is. But I can't give too much away.
I don't know if I agree with that interpretation.
I mean, obviously,
I would say Android is dramatically, alarmingly stagnant. Because
you would think Android's the stagnant.
Oh, well, no, not in Google's release, but in actual market application. The market is running Android 2.2. Whereas on iOS, the market is running the latest
6
iOS.
Or 5,
yeah.
It is.
And so in terms of actual what gets the job done, when you actually look at the end of the day, it's iOS. It's much further ahead than Android is in terms of deployment. And this is something that gets me so upset about Android because Google should have done a better job. We didn't need to have this happen. And they could have done a better job at this, and they screwed it up.
All right, what I would say is take a look at the Samsung Atrix. And now hold up your Android 2.3 or even 4.0 device and hold up your iOS 5 device. And who's the odd man out? And who feels like they're taking more risk? I mean, I get what you're saying about the market share. That is Google's fault. I think they're going to change that, right? All they have to do is some contract changes.
I hope so.
But I mean, Microsoft has that.
Microsoft's better about it though. Microsoft
it's part of the contract. You have to send the updates.
They watched how Google screwed it up, and they did it right.
Yeah, I would just say that, to be honest, iOS is showing its age to me.
Yeah, it does seem like
Android is. They've gotten better. They've moved away from looking just like iOS, but that's really only in not gingerbread, jelly bean. And you make a point that the vast majority of devices are still on 2.2, which, whatever you want to say, older versions of Android to me are iOS little brother. I mean, they look the same, they act the same,
but they don't do things like support a decent HLS stream, which sucks for us. And
right,
there's all these little things that they just don't have.
And now I look at the Samsung Atrix, or the demos and videos I can find of it. I will say they're taking a big risk, but I will say that sometime, you have to move forward, and someone has to do it. And I don't think this current, chiclet model of you tap an icon, you open an app is gonna really do it.
You know what I think could be really compelling is, and this is something you'll never see. Well, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say this. I guess Apple could do something like this, but we've seen these phone demos taking the Motorola Atrix and then adding the Ubuntu, whatever they call it for Android on there, where it's an Android phone and then you put it in the dock and then it's an Ubuntu workstation. That seems neat. And that's the kind of, now maybe that's not going to go anywhere immediately. Yeah. It might have some, it's got some stuff to work out, but that's just not anything you're seeing from Apple.
And I just want to address something quickly in the chat. Iva is saying that it's not Google's fault that Android is far behind. So that's not true. If it's their platform, they're responsible for tending it, just like they're responsible for keeping malware out of the store. They made a bad business deal with all the manufacturers that say you can do whatever you want with our software. And that should not have been agreed to. They're responsible for Android.
They made a bad deal just so that way they get people to use it, so they could essentially they bought market share with those deals.
And it's pretty obvious from the show and some of my blog posts. I have a lot of problems with what Google's done with Android, particularly around app monetization. And I have a lot of problems with Apple did too, how they've kind of made it hard to sell software. But Google, I would think, has done more damage by not keeping everybody up to date and not requiring that of their partners.
There are new phones that were announced last week that are shipping with ice cream sandwich.
And even worse, the Kindle version of Android. I mean, we've talked about this before, but openness is good. Fragmentation that Joe user doesn't understand, and my mom has a Kindle Fire, and she doesn't understand, why can't I go to the new Play Store and buy apps? Because the app's not in the Kindle store.
So, I got you this Play gifts. Oh,
exactly. So there's a time for openness, and I think Android's now mature enough where it's time for control. It's time to, no more crap devices, no more a year behind on the OS.
Right, like if you get one of the Nexus devices or the Galaxy devices,
I love my Nexus.
Yeah, then you've got a great phone, and you've got great support, and it's like you have to buy the Cadillac though in order to get that, I guess.
And you have to pay full price.
And that's just not what Joe Consumer's going to do. So yeah. Anyways, I guess we should probably move on. But to Miguel's point, I think you're right, Michael. I think you nailed it. He's kind of looking at it from the way we looked at it 5 years ago.
And I understand. His way of looking at it is, I think, a way a lot of the Linux community looks at it. And I think it's unpopular to start saying that Ubuntu is Mac, not, is the Mac OS to BSD, as, instead of just a version of Linux.
That's what it's going to have to become, just to isolate it from some of the issues that Miguel did point out. Like, there are some, he is right in some regards, and those are all, a lot of what he said, a lot of the points he brought up about compatibility can be sort of ironed out in a long-term support version and sort of negated. And that's exactly what Canonical's going to do. They're working with these development shops. They're flying their people to Bellevue, Washington to go talk to Valve. They're attending developer conferences to tell them about integrating with the Ubuntu software store. No other distributions are doing this.
And that's fine. I'm not saying they should. And they have different goals. Fedora's, totally community, totally, kind of Libre. That's fine. Ubuntu is, to me, it's pretty clear Mark Shuttleworth wants Ubuntu to be pseudo commercial desktop.
And I kind of hope he does, so that way consumers have a choice in the marketplace as Microsoft and Apple continue down the path they're going.
And honestly, to me, more Unix desktops means more thing I have Bash on.
Yeah.
So yay,
Miguel. Miguel might be right for the moment, but give us another year. We'll see where things stand. Another year or two. See where things are at.
If he's right, I really hope he's wrong. Because if he's right, then the logical conclusion is Linux is just going to die, except for the server. And he's asserting that it already has.
It just doesn't seem like that's the case. It actually seems like with the within the last year things have gotten. Actually,
Dersani is telling us in the chat that Linus replied to Miguel.
Yeah.
I have not seen that yet.
There's a great Google Plus thread. It's linked in the Linux Action Show subreddit, and basically Linus calls out that look, Miguel, you're throwing your own S on me here. You're the one that started the very fragmentation that you're complaining about, and the kernel has had a hard, long rule that we don't break any external interfaces. We don't ever do that. I have binaries that ran against Linux kernel 1.0 that are running against this kernel right now. And so and then in that same thread, Alan Cox jumps in and also kind of gives Miguel a hard time. It's a good thread.
All right,
and then Miguel starts responding.
I'll have to read it after the show. I mean,
it's a good one.
There's a lot of great software in Linux, and I think what Ubuntu's doing is only going to foster commercial development, which is good, which is what you want. So let's get off of that because that was long. So, Chris, how do you start your morning? Do you have tea or coffee?
Usually a little coffee.
You ever get burned?
I have.
Lots of folks got burned this week by some steaming hot Java. So normally I don't talk about security stuff on the show because I think Alan Jude does an excellent job. And did you guys mention it? I haven't listened this week.
Oh yeah. He dug into it.
Oh dear. So I have a few points. I'm not going to go over the exploit because I think every Ars Technica, TechCrunch, apparently TechSnap, every single blog or podcast has told you exactly what happens.
And we have, but it's germane to this show because Java has been a topic of conversation recently.
But bottom line, it's a 0 day that they get total control of your machine in that simplest terms. And we don't need to go into how. We don't need to talk about packages. You can Google it. It's not important for the purpose of this conversation. What is important is, so there are, I would say, millions of apps or other utilities running on Java today on probably everybody's computer. So the idea that you're just going to wholesale disable Java is a little strange. Now, disabling it in the browser probably makes sense. You probably shouldn't have it enabled in the browser at all.
Yeah. And in fact, I think Chrome now by default
disables it.
Yeah.
Yep, you have to allow it manually every time. The other thing is, I don't know, I'd be interested in how you feel about this, Chris. I felt a lot of the blog coverage on this was extremely sensationalist.
Yeah, Oracle's really burned the goodwill. And the internet has a little vindictive side to it, doesn't it, when it comes to this stuff?
Well, some of it, I mean, I read a number of them. You know, if you didn't know better, you would read it and think Java is going to blow up my computer tomorrow.
I should have clipped Leo Laporte this weekend on the Tech Guy radio show. He was describing it like people were under attack at this moment, and their machine. Angela, we were in the car, and Angela, leans over to me and says, "Is Leo fear-mongering right now?" Like she didn't know anything about the Java exploit or anything. She's like, "This sounds really sensational." I mean, she was picking it up, and she had no idea about the story.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Leo Laporte. I listen to his shows, except for the one that's actually on the radio. I don't know why all these very famous, very respected journalists and podcasters have decided that they hate Java. I don't know if it's, somebody wrote a story that wasn't really properly researched and they just picked it up. But, there will always be security problems in everything. The reason Java is a big target is because Java is a big deployment. It's a wide target to hit. And it's a cross-platform target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is no reason to run away from Java as a development platform because of this. There may be other reasons not to use Java for your particular application or project, but some of these blogs, go ahead and disable Java because, the sky is falling. And these were respectable publications. These were not like Joe Blow's blog.
No, this was on ours. Yeah, I saw it too. And my takeaway is it's simply the way the internet journalism works these days. And when a company has lost favor, this is how their products are written about. And this is the kind of problem that companies start to have to. Microsoft has fought this for a long time now. Because they're getting their ass kicked so much by Apple, the tide actually turned for them.
Yeah,
right?
Gizmodo loves Microsoft.
Right, and now they hate Apple, right? Apple. And now there's they're trying to drive that tone change. And that's just, of course, because they're butthurt because of the whole iPhone getting stolen
iPhone thing.
Yeah. And in some regards, I'll admit I'm kind of in the camp. I don't like Oracle anymore. I hate what they're doing to MySQL. I don't trust what they're going to do with Java.
But that's religion.
Right, exactly, and it's inappropriate for bloggers and
right.
And I'll note. I think people can watch the episode of TechSnub. I think I was very balanced about it. My recommendation was the same as yours. Leave it on your system, but probably turn it off in your web browser.
I would say that from a practical point of view, Java in the web browser is a unnecessary risk, an irresponsible risk. Conversely, deleting Java on your system is probably going to disable a number of things you use that you're not aware use Java. And I think we've been down on Java before, and I wanted to talk a little about why you might develop on Java for the desktop this episode.
Okay.
So, cross-platform, obviously. Java's an easy language any way you slice it.
If Java's the answer, it must have been a really stupid question, says Maxwell in the chat room.
I mean, Maxwell, in his cheeky, somewhat not nice way, does have a good point, though. Java's really good at simple apps and simple utilities on the desktop side. I'm not talking about server. It's amazing on the server. You're not going to... All right, you might write a game in Java, but if it's really high frame rate, you're probably not going to want to. Probably C++ or on Mac, Objective-C. But if you're writing a little utility, for example, the crash plan utility is Java.
Yeah, the backup utility, yeah.
It's not always necessary to go down to C++ to do everything. And HTML5 on the desktop still isn't quite that mature. Java's a battle-tested and mature platform to develop on. There's lots of help out there. You can get inexpensive help from college students if you need it. Let's say you have a little bit of work that needs to be done. They're very cheap. They all learn Java.
Don't you feel, though, like there's such a momentum against it that it almost recommending investing in it now almost seems like...
No, see, this is what my problem is. If the reason people were writing these nasty articles about it was based on some kind of real...
technical limitation or something like that.
All right, let's work it backwards. Show me the cross-platform alternative that's mature enough, or as mature, close to it. That is a C-style language, compiles to a VM, that is not HTML or JavaScript. I mean, I will certainly admit that it has a lot of warts, right? It's overzealous adherence to object orientation means you have to write a lot of code to do anything. It's slow to start up, especially on the desktop. It's got problems, but also it's not completely inept. There's a lot of things that can be done in Java, such as Minecraft, as someone points out in the chat.
Yep.
I just,
So they claim 1.1 billion desktops have the Java runtime environment. 930 million Java runtime environments downloads each year. 3 billion phones run Java.
I mean, it's not like Mac user, really? Jupyter Broadcasting is saying that...
yeah, it happens.
It's not a bad language. Now, that is not to say Oracle isn't doing some questionable things. That isn't to say that it is a great solution for everything you do. But for a small utility app on the desktop, I would use it. On the server, I think it still has a lot of cache, especially with larger enterprises.
Oh yeah, a lot of enterprise apps that they don't know what host operating system you're going to use. They'll just write the damn app in Java.
I mean, it's
I've
weird.
seen game servers written in Java. Like back end like MMO game servers that are written in Java. I've seen monitoring agents written in Java, deployment systems written in Java.
It's a little strange, right? Because in a lot of ways, Java is a product of the time it was invented.
It does feel like that, though, yeah. Although it's interesting, still that the problem it's trying to solve back then is still relevant today.
Right, and I don't know of a good alternative. I mean, some of it's environmental. Java is sometimes a good choice only because you need interns to help you, and they all got taught Java, and probably only Java, if they haven't already graduated. And that's just, that's the God's honest truth. If you're lucky, they've had a Python class. Java is really easy. Yeah. Until you get up to crazy, like, data processing stuff. It has lots of issues, though. The GUIs built in Java aren't that great looking, in my opinion. With game development, you're not going to get what you really would get with C++ or Objective-C or something more optimized. I don't know. I mean, Chris, I even feel, particularly on, let's say, Linux, I think Java is still a viable application development platform.
Yeah, it solves some of the compatibility problems, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the only thing that might have came close to replacing it, but they botched it, would have been Mono.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the biggest thing Java has going for it is the simplicity of the language.
The nice thing about Mono was you got what you gave up in some level of portability, you got in desktop integration, right? So a good Mono app really looked like it belonged on that desktop. I think of Banshee, which is just a beautiful media player for the Linux desktop. Just feels as integrated as you could ever hope, all built on top of Mono.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the people who are currently hating on Java, particularly in the chat, would be surprised to find that a number of the apps they use are in fact written in Java. It's interesting how the tide turns on programming languages. I remember when Ruby and Rails was the darling. And now the Rails hate is flowing freely.
Is it now?
Oh, yes. And a lot of that's the fault of the Rails community because they're kind of jerks. Well, they get upset about the beauty of your code. Like, they do things that alienate other people.
That's interesting. That's interesting considering the people I know that are Ruby developers and how you're kind of right, how they're kind of snooty.
Well, so there's a difference between Ruby and Rails, right? You have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not mean to, yeah.
It's just interesting how they're falling out of favor and how Python is now becoming a darling. And so is Django. I see people who used to criticize me for my love of Objective-C now writing nice blog posts about how elegant Objective-C is.
You just want to troll them in the comments, don't you?
Oh, I'm just like, but I thought C++ was so much more powerful and Objective-C made no sense. This is the way it goes. Languages is almost like fashion. They fall in and out of favor. If you remember back in the day, Java was going to rule the world. Java was going to be the one language to rule them all.
I'm still waiting to get my Java desktop computer.
I know, right? Where's my Solaris? Bring it on.
Yeah. Project Glass running on top of a Java desktop.
Yeah. I mean, the market is ready for a Java replacement for sure, but there isn't one.
That's a good way to put it. The market's ready.
Market's ready, but to replace Java, you need to be object-oriented and simple. So you can't be, you can't be functional. It needs to be something that can be used as an intro to computing course.
Here we go. So I got it wrong. It was Project Looking Glass. That's what it was. You remember that? Did you ever see that?
Oh, that's old. Did they ever finish that?
No, but that was the whole beautiful Sun desktop that was before we had Compiz and all that kind of stuff. Right. It had a dock, by the way. It used a dock. It actually reminded me a lot of Mac OS X. But they never did end up shipping it, I don't think. You had to have it on Solaris.
I know the answer. Go.
Wow, look at this. This
answer is Go.
Go. What's this?
The Google Go programming language.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
You think really? Are you being genuine? You really think it is?
I think that might be it. It has virtually no good tooling around it right now, but it's elegant.
Yeah.
It's as powerful as C++, give or take, but it takes away a lot of the crazy ass warts that got bolted onto C++ over the years. It's fairly simple to teach. Although Grey Wolf disagrees with me, so I'm probably wrong. And it's by Google, so come on. So, okay, Go is not the answer. Go is the problem, according to Grey Wolf.
Oh, well, geez. That's the exact opposite of what you want.
And he likes D.
I got to say, this Project Looking Glass is amazing. That is, you guys, I'll put a link to that in the show notes because that's incredible. That they're rocking a desktop like you'd never even seen. They're whipping things around in 3-dimensional space. It's craziness.
Wow.
All right, so you have a, and I don't mean to jump, but we have a note in here about getting bit by a bird, Michael.
Yeah, so along the same lines, I ignored it last week because I didn't think it was a huge deal, but I got lots of communications, let's say. So a lot of you got bit by a little birdie, apparently.
No kidding.
Its name is Twitter.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to sound cheeky, as our British folks might say, but I mean, you built something on somebody else's platform with no contract and no guarantee of safety. And then they pulled the rug from under you.
Harsh.
And you were surprised.
Harsh.
So, this is a good lesson, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have a signed contract, everything you're told is meaningless.
Yeah.
That you have, if you're running a business, it's a business. Twitter may have promised to be an open platform at one point, but unless, somebody's name was signed to that, it doesn't mean anything. And, the small developer community being upset that they've been, quote, betrayed by Twitter isn't going to hurt Twitter. In fact, and actually, I think it was on Twit or one of the Twit podcasts. They made a good point. Tech people are actually low value users for Twitter. They don't click on ads according to I think it's ThinkUp or some kind of metric system.
They frequently use third-party clients that maybe hide ads.
That hide ads. Twitter wants mom and pop. They want your mother, your father, your little. Yeah, they don't want
the non-savvy.
So what I would say is that the next time you want to build something on a platform, get a contract or don't.
Geez, there you go.
It's harsh,
sound
but
advice.
if you're actually building a business, this is like when people cry that Google's open. Google never made any legally binding agreement to be open. You can do whatever they want. And, the small number of people that would be upset is irrelevant. So this then comes, a lot of people ask me about app.net. I did join app.net. I don't think it's going to see the adoption because Twitter is free. And if anything, if the app market has taught us anything, free beats better every time.
Kind of seems like it's already pittering out a little bit.
Yeah, it's dying. It got a lot of tech people, and that's about it.
It reached its funding, and then it stopped. I created an account, and I haven't gone back.
Yeah. Another interesting issue is, so now, if you're unaware, Twitter's deal is if you hit 100,000 tokens, they will, quote, work with you to optimize your revenue or something like that. Now, that's business speak for will either throw you out or force you to pay them or somehow do a rev share. Nobody's sure what it really means, but it's like if your boss calls you and wants to have a chat or a word with you. It's not a good thing, guys.
Right.
They're not going to buy your company. And, a lot of the big Twitter developers are showing stiff upper lip. They're saying the right things, in particular tap bots. But this is bad, and this should be the biggest lesson. Don't build on somebody else's platform without a contract. This is it. They have no legal obligation to any of you. Period.
Yeah, and they really are in the position to say, thanks for all the fish and so long.
And that's what they are saying. I mean, this is step one. I can't wait to see step two.
What do you think of it? Do you think there is a step two?
No more clients, period.
Whoa. API goes read-only or something like that? No, there's no way. There's just no way because the huge value is the way people can pump stuff into Twitter.
No. So you don't need a client to pump things in.
Yeah.
You need just Twitter integration with an app.
Right.
So they like that.
Yeah.
They want you to pump, they want it to be write, not read.
Oh.
right? So the opposite of what you're saying.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. That way you can spam Twitter, but you can't pull anything to make. Gosh, but so such a huge part of Twitter is pulling in the feed, parsing the data, and getting the interesting trends. That's, I think, the value in Twitter. Twitter itself, to me, I go there and I'm just always like, okay, maybe I check out a couple of things, but when I see like, we generated these graphs from Twitter and we've figured out this information from Twitter, and it's like, oh, now that seems really interesting. In aggregate, when you bring everything together, then there's some power. But if Twitter shuts that down,
well, so Twitter's allowing data analysis still. What they want to get rid of is an app that shows tweets themselves. And it's pretty obvious why.
Oh, yeah.
Advertising.
Yeah, totally.
They don't want you to suppress ads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. So now they're putting restrictions on how you render the timeline.
So they're cherry picking. They're saying, okay, we're going to keep this stuff because this is something that makes us competitive.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you expect them to do? This is exactly what you expect them to do, right?
I don't fault Twitter beyond the fact that they, this happens all the time with Google too, the openness thing. They play that card, they get the development community to fall in love, and then they quickly, they disappear at 6 a.m. It's, you can't be that naive. Especially a company with investors is not going to do something to be open. If you really need them to act a certain way, you need to get a contract. And you may say, well, they're never going to deal with little indie developers. Then you don't deal with them. And that's it. Twitter is not a tech company. Twitter is a media company. Look at Twitter like you might look at NBC Universal. Because that's how they see themselves. It's a media and advertising company.
Yeah. That's just what we need.
Well, I know I beat this horse a lot, but
how can app.net make it if Identica couldn't even make it, and Identica is totally free?
Well, Identica killed itself. Identica made that bad design change,
yeah.
But app.net's problem is that the current software marketplace has unfortunately ingrained users that free is always better than paid, even if paid is like $1.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people we can blame, and I go on about this a lot, but I think we should be paying for Google Apps and Gmail, and everything should be paid at least a small fee. Because it's interesting, and Marco Arment had a great article about this, or a great podcast about this. In every other industry, if there's a product, let's say me and Chris are 2 car companies. Chris, you have Jupiter Motors.
Yes.
And I've got Tech Motors.
Okay.
Chris sells a car for $15,000, making a $3,000 profit.
Nice.
I start giving cars away for $1.
Ah.
Chris can sue me in federal court saying I'm doing something called predatory pricing, and I will be forced to sell the cars at a proper market rate.
Okay.
That doesn't exist in tech, and that's been the business model for almost every venture-backed company I've ever worked with. See a product that some small developers making money off of, get investors, make a free version, and then monetize the data.
Pocket, for example.
Exactly. And in any other industry, that would be considered predatory and would be illegal, or be unlawful, because technically there's no actual statute. But you would be compelled to either play by the rules or get out. But in tech, it's somehow acceptable to take someone's product, release it for free, and just not steal, but you get them to agree to take people's data and monetize that. That there's a lot of talk about innovation, especially given the current climate with the elections coming up in the US. That kills innovation. If a small guy can't pay his rent making a great product because a big company is just going to clone it for free in half the time because they have the resources, that's it.
Sounds like you're making a case for patents.
I'm not making a case for patents. I'm making a case for, if you like technology, pay for it. Or else, as Iva, I can't say your name, sorry, man, puts in the chat, the future is going to be in your data and nobody's going to be happy.
This is in a large part a way that even Jupiter Broadcasting struggles with, because the expectation, and understandably so, is that podcast media is free. But it costs considerable amount of money to produce the amount of shows we do per week. And so, we try to work with donations and affiliates and sponsorships to try to offset the cost. But it would all go away if I could just say, all right, well, if you want to download all the shows, it's $7 a week or $7 a month.
because that Chris is actually a great example, because Chris doesn't have the same type of support as other bigger podcast networks, even though you're actually pretty big by listenership, aren't you?
Yeah, but I don't have like a Leo Laporte name, so I can't go to knock on the door of like Ford.
So, I would say that the content and the quality, and I find this in desktop software as well, from these smaller companies tends to be a little better, and you get better support because it's one guy or two guys than the big companies. The problem is those two guys need to charge you at least $2 or $5 or something to pay their rent and eat.
Mm-hmm.
And more we've come to this idea that, oh, well, software should not cost money. Web apps should all be free.
Right. The only way I could charge is if Revision 3 and Twit and those guys charged.
Right. And, Revision 3 is not owned by Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
Twit is a little different because, Leo Laporte can trade on his mainstream fame.
Yeah. He has his radio advertisers on the network.
Right. I mean, and even in the software side, Marco Arment is a great example. He got in early enough where he could still charge a price, and now he charges $5, which is a very high price for a mobile app, because he's been able to move himself as more of a premium personality.
Right.
That is dying, and that's dying quickly. And that innovation is going to be gone if people aren't willing to pay for decent software.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'll get off the soapbox. I'm just saying, don't cry when people are selling your data to advertisers when you weren't willing to pay for the $5 alternative. And don't cry when a company like Twitter undermines your business model when you didn't deal with it in a business-like fashion.
I guess there's a lot of assumptions made on both the user and the developer's standpoints. There was what seemed like a social contract in place between Twitter and the developers in some regards, and Twitter and the users too. I mean, users created hashtags, users created @replies,
and that's lovely for a first-year philosophy class,
right?
But
when it comes down to a business, yeah, and also a business that's had a lot of turnover from the originators at the top, right? I mean, you've had people leave that were there at the beginning, likely because they didn't like the direction things were going. So it's kind of a sign when you're developing an application that uses their services and you start seeing some of their original founding members leaving. You kind of have to you have to pay attention to that.
And, this is a bigger, but I feel also like developers who are unwilling to pay $10 for a developer tool. First of all, they used to cost thousands of dollars. Second of all, the open source community will serve a lot of needs. But for the more mainstream software community, it's not going to be pretty. I'm telling you, it is not going to be a good world to be in where everything's based on tracking you and taking your data.
Oh, man. I know.
So cough up your $5 and go buy CodeJournal now.
Ah, nice. And
yes.
And your $7 a month donate to Jupiter Broadcasting.
Exactly. In fact, go learn some code school, because we're all going to have to write our own software soon when I go out of business. All right. Should we move along? I'll put my soapbox under my desk.
All right. Got shot down, though. What's going on here? Shot down.
We'll do this quickly. So originally, I was collecting stories about bad luck in software development.
Yes, right. For lucky number 13.
Yes. And a common theme was you shipped your app, let's say your web app, because that was the most common one, like your PHP site or whatever. You go on vacation for a weekend. You got a call Saturday night. The whole thing crashed.
The worst.
So what do you do? So hopefully we're gathering metrics on exactly what crashed. You had some good debugging tools in place.
Metrics, yes.
If you're not, I think you're in trouble. Another question. Can you and I'm going through these quickly because we're way over time. Can you contact your users to let them know there's a problem rather than having them go flame you on some forum?
Oh, man,
right?
Yeah.
Because that quick contact is the difference between so-and-so Inc. is, full of idiots and they don't know what they're doing, over, okay, they're trying to fix it.
Get
I'll check
ahead
back
of
in
it.
a few hours.
I've seen some sites that have crashes, and one of the nice touches is like when they have a very nice, like, oh, we've had a problem. Like, it makes me feel a little better about it. And a lot of them will say, we've already reported this. Don't worry.
Have a cute fail whale.
Yeah.
Like I love the Reddit thing where he's got the F5 hammer.
Yeah.
That's adorable. And that takes off any of the ill will.
Right.
Now this is where things get scary. Has your data become compromised? let's say your database. I hope to God you wrote your app in a way that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
If it has, do you have a way to manually fix that that's easy and not dangerous?
Yeah, no kidding.
And this is something I find a lot of people don't put quote unquote backdoors into their software to fix it. I don't know why. There's obviously security concerns, and I'm not saying I always do put them in, but
you need something you close later too.
It's something you can close later. Inconsistent data will ruin your application, no matter what it's written in PHP, Ruby, whatever. Especially I heard a story once where the web app crashed, but only the payment processing crashed. So they could do everything else on their service except for, of course, collect money from their users. In order to fix that, they had to take the whole thing down, and this is old. This is back in ASP.NET 1.
Yeah.
You never want to be in that situation.
No.
You need to, and when I say, you need to gather metrics on the usage of your application, I don't mean gathering metrics on your users, like creepy stuff like that. I mean just, analyze your web app. How many K of JavaScript files are you loading? How many K of images are you loading? Are you loading images that are far too large for where they're being rendered?
Mm-hmm.
Are you properly using a CDN? If you're not, I know someone who can help you. His name is Alan.
ScaleEngine.com.
Yeah. Because those little things will help your performance, especially it's huge. I'm sure Chris has seen this a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm loading the image from, California for someone in Asia. Huh.
It's not just about speed for your end user, but it's also about reducing load from the central server.
And bandwidth.
Yeah, conserving bandwidth on that server so it can be freed up to process the other things it has to do.
Exactly. These are all little things. This does touch on unit testing a little. Prevention is probably the best medicine. But, and we did have a little more to go into, Chris, but I think we can skip it for today.
We could always save it for another episode. We
can save it for another day because we're a bit over. But
big show.
Yeah. I would say that, if you're not running analytics on your code, you have a problem. Particularly if it's a web app, you need to see where it's slowing down, where it's not responding.
Without it. You just don't have
You're flying blind.
Yeah, exactly. Flying blind.
And as someone who's got that Saturday night call.
Yeah. That's the worst time to be flying blind.
Yeah. So.
Especially after a Ren fair.
Well, the ale, man, the ale.
You haven't made any plugs yourself this week. Is there anything you want to plug? I mean, you made your CodeJournal app plug.
Well, of course, I like to plug CodeJournal every chance I get.
Yeah.
I would also like to mention to the Linux folks looking for CodeJournal, I am aware you're there. Thank you for your quantiful, shall we say, emails. I know it's not a word, but I made it up. I'm working on it. It will take time.
Takes time.
That's really all I have to plug this week. Okay. If anybody needs any help with Mac or iOS, I'm around.
Yeah. Anybody needs some contract work? Needed something solved, need something done, let them know.
If you need your Java app ported to Cocoa, I understand.
CoderRadio@JupiterBroadcasting.com.
So we have a tool this week.
Yeah. I love this tool.
I know. This was featured on Linux Action Show, and I heard it. I just heard it. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, I heard
Turnkey Linux.
This is right up developers' alley, isn't it?
This is great. I mean, the one thing that really stood out to me is they have a pre-made Git server, so you can host your own. Because a lot of people have emailed in saying, "Oh, you recommend all these cloud hosting solutions."
Why not do it yourself?
But I don't. Yeah, I don't trust GitHub.
And here's a turnkey Couch DB server, relevant to what we've been talking about.
Yep.
And a LAMP stack. So if you want to do a little PHP and MySQL, you don't want to spend your time setting up Apache and all that. You just want to run that and then load your app. They have it here for you. They also have I thought it was really neat. They have an Apache with mod mono, which sounds nice.
Yeah, they have everything. I mean, this is This looks like a pretty robust tool, and I'm actually going to probably sometime this week set up an internal Git hosting over here. And just kind of see how that goes.
Yeah, and they have a really neat online service component with it too. Yeah, check it out.
You can do a software assistant. They have an offering for what is it? Look at that. They even have a Rails one.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my, and is that Node?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh my lord.
And they've got and they have everything from like shopping cart ones too. It's just really cool.
I would definitely check this out.
IT guys gotta love the drop-in domain controller. I think that's pretty neat, or drop-in file server.
Yeah, and for the Debian fans, this is all built on Debian.
Yep.
So not Ubuntu, straight Debian.
Right. Although they talk about being inspired from Ubuntu, but
I don't know what that means.
I don't really either. But they talk about it in their Q&A. They say that they started in 2008, inspired by the principle of Ubuntu, an African word meaning the humanity towards others. I don't know, but it's a great tool and an awesome way for developers who don't want to worry about the lower stacks and just want to focus on their project. So
I think especially you may not deploy this as your production, but
probably not
to quickly test something out or to run a simple dev instance. I think this is a great tool. Particularly the mono implementation one, because that's annoying to set up. There
you go, turnkeylinux.org. Our link in the show notes, along with links to many of the other things we talked about in this week's finely brewed edition of Coder Radio, a nice Labor Day edition of Coder Radio, nice and long. So you could join us live and hang out in our chat room. Thank you to our chat room who's joined us over at jblive.tv Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific, which is noon Eastern time. And I don't know what the UTC is off the top of my head, but I'll get that figured out. I know we've had people asking for that. But Michael, thank you for a great show, sir.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Coder Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.